Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, as we continue here on with the ESL NA Community Cup actually not into the next round, into the same round, because we had a 9-team bracket. Of course, that does force you into a round of 16. A whole bunch of buys did occur, and these teams, Seventh Heaven and Premonition, did both agree to wait for the first cast so that we could actually cover them. And it's, that's a little bit about what tonight's all about. It's about covering some of this new talent in the scene, up and coming. You Forced My Hand looked fantastic in their match up against ESV Tempest. We're going to see what these teams can bring to the table, Shane.
Yeah, so I'm completely unfamiliar with these teams. I do recognize a couple names. I recognize Short Steve name. I recognize the JDDWG.
It's not Sia Steve.
Yes, it's not Sia Steve. It's his shorter evil twin. No, I'm just kidding.
No, I'd go with that.
And
definitely.
Nick Starr is not Nick. He's not Nick Hotz. Nick Hotz, Nick Starr, two different people.
Yeah, I just envision Sia Steve as like a Dr. Evil and Short Steve as Mini-Me.
Dude, yeah.
we love you. We love you, Matt.
Dude.
We do.
Oh, that's so great. But yeah, these two unknown teams. Looking forward to it. Seventh Hun. Oh my God. Seventh Heaven. Okay, the reason I just said Seventh Heaven is because there's a brewery here called Seventh Sun, and I said Seventh Sun as my head as I started to say heaven in my mouth, so it just combined into Hun. Seventh Heaven.
Like ever, yeah.
Seventh Heaven, because I saw their name, I was like, oh, it's like Seventh Sun. I really like that brewery. Anyways,
as long as
versus
you have
Premonition.
a trick to remember their name, that's all we need.
Exactly. The bands are coming out here. The map is Darganshire. The bands, Premonition had the first band banning out the Moo Cow ETC. So no red meat for us today, Sean. Unfortunately, we're going to have to go possibly vegetarian. Seventh Heaven banning out the Rhaegar. So no green meat either. No asparagus, if you will. So the first pick
Today
being
I learned
from
orcs are green meat.
I mean, they're green. It depends on what type of orc. I mean, are we talking about the orc that got the curse? Or, oh my God, I'm totally losing all credibility as a Warcraft 3 nerd. Mal'Ganis? Mal'Ganis' blood. No.
I don't know what happened to this cast all of a sudden.
Crap. Anyways.
Manarath.
Yes, okay.
Go.
Going into the draft here, first pick Zagara from Premonition.
Yep.
That is interesting.
It is Dragonshire, though, and typically we do actually see more importance on siege heroes rather than some straight-up DPS. For example, the Happy Fairy Dragons last week in the amateur league that they were in consistently went Sergeant Hammer Zagara as their backline. That was it. Double support and a tank, or they'd throw in a single support tank and Thrall, all protecting this backline. And
Wow.
Anna Prosser, who was my co-caster at the time, coined him as the Siege Sisters. So seeing on Dragonshire some very important heroes that you're likely to see is definitely going to be Zagara. You're also going to be now looking for the Sergeant Hammer because it's not banned, and this is one of the strongest maps for the Hammer. But I wouldn't also be surprised to see a Zeratul maybe pop up.
Especially if they had like a Zagara displacement, Devouring Maw, and all that stuff. No Siege Sisters today. The Siege Sisters are unfortunately going to be on two other sides of the map. Seventh Hun. I did it again. I said Seventh Hun. Seventh Heaven.
I'm going to have to reach through the internet and slap you, Shane.
Being picked up here. So Stitch's Hammer is going to be their first two pickups here. Obviously, very solid heroes we see all the time. And Premonition is going to get their second pick right now. Could be a variety of things. With ETC not being picked up, it always throws a wrench into the Warrior lineup because ETC is kind of in his own league right now, above everyone else, and then kind of everyone else is below him. Stitches, Muradin, Diablo are big warriors that kind of fall behind ETC. So it's going to be interesting to see what's picked up. And the Uther being picked up for Premonition. So now what are we going to see here from Seventh Heaven? I think Malfurion is going to be the go-to support. Possibly a Lily. We don't see Lily that much, but we'd have seen her a couple times in that position. Same with Brightwing. We do see Brightwing occasionally, but I think Malfurion is kind of the big go-to support. Now, what I want to know is if Seventh Heaven, I nailed it. If Seventh Heaven doesn't pick up their support here, is Premonition going to go duo support, and that really constricts Seventh Heaven's support pool to pick from? Because then they only have pretty much Brightwing and Lily to pick from. So that's going to be interesting because the Malfurion Uther duo combination is probably one of the strong. I mean, obviously the strongest is considered Uther Rhaegar, but no one can ever get Uther Rhaegar in the current meta right now. But Malfurion Uther is a very, very strong synergistic double support duo. So that's definitely something Seventh Heaven needs to be considered right now if they want to get their hands on a strong the support on Malfurion. So they took the Meriden and they get a Tassadar. Okay, Premonition, I'm going to see if they go with this double support or if they're just going to let Seventh Heaven default to the Malfurion.
Okay, so in terms of Project the Hammer, having a double tank line is something definitely we've seen in the past. Not, I wouldn't say it's especially popular right now in the NA side of things. It's always more important there for a double support. And if we do actually go for another support here for the Seventh Heaven, then they're literally, it's just Hammer. That's all they got. That's all. Maybe, a bit more of a bruiser heavy Tassadar, but c'est la vie. So yeah, Premonition, as you said, what are they going to go for that front line? And hello, the Angel of Justice. We have not seen you doing any justice as of late. It has been a heck of a while since you've been on the FourCourt stream.
He's received, the only time we ever saw Tyrael prior to the Lost Vikings patch was used as a counter to Hammer. Evil Geniuses actually did it to great effect. They would use Tyrael usually with another follow-up heroic or follow-up hero, anyone you can possibly think of, Judgment into Hinterland's Blast, Judgment into whatever. And it worked really, really well, especially during the time Sergeant Hammer was being picked up even more so in the North American scene. But the big thing they did with the Lost Vikings patch is they took away Cast Aside at level 13 on Tyrael. And I mean, we just haven't seen him. I mean, that was one of his biggest reasons why he was picked up, is because Cast Aside is such an effect. I mean, it's such a versatile tool. It can be used defensively, offensively. There's a lot of really cool things you can do with it, and he no longer has that either. So it's interesting seeing the Tyrael pickup. I think it is because of the Hammer. I think it's a reactionary pick to the Hammer. Not sure how it's going to pan out, though, because the follow-up from it, I mean, they do have Zagara. They have Tychus Odin in the back lines with the follow-up Judgment, but they don't have any that, patented 1-2 knockout punch that we really think of when we see a Tyrael trying to counter a Hammer, like a Hinterland's Blast or a Zeratul or something along that nature. So it's going to be interesting to see how they play with that. And Seventh Heaven looking for their last pickup here. They need that healing support, and I more than likely I think it's going to be Malfurion here. If they want to do something cheeky with maybe a Brightwing or a Lily, they definitely have the option. But Malfurion would probably be the well-rounded, strong pickup here for him.
But again, if they do actually go with that, I mean, it's just the Hammer. I don't think they can rely on just the Hammer against a composition of Zagara, Vala, and Tychus. And Stormdraft actually bugged out. Last pick was Brightwing. Thank you, guys.
Okay. So they're going with the Brightwing. So they're relying on the Tassadar Archon, who's very, very reliant on Archon, and the Sergeant Hammer. So a Premonition, if they are able to disengage from the Archon and have a good exit strategy that gets them out cleanly, whenever they see the Archon being popped, if that's a tactic they want to use, they definitely have the ability to do so, especially with a Zagara Maw. If whoever's playing that Zagara, if he can land that Maw when Archon is used, or Avatar, but more so focus on the Archon with Tassadar, then they can really just completely disable the backbone, the foundation of Seventh Heaven's team fight, because Archon is going to be a very, very vital to them having enough damage to take down Premonition right now. I mean, if they don't have that Archon up, if they don't get enough usage and damage out of that Archon, they're just simply not going to have enough damage. They're just going to get pushed over. But yeah, the support being picked up is Brightwing, so they go with the mobility right there. It is Dragonshire, so obviously Brightwing is known for her mobility strength for this map due to the nature of it. And I don't mind that pick. I think Brightwing is still a very, very strong hero. Obviously, if Tyrael goes a little bit too far in there and gets polymorphed, is just going to get absolutely picked off with the stuns they have with the Meriden and Sergeant Hammer, just picking them off in the back lines. And I believe we had a disconnect. Once that disconnect gets remedied, we'll get into this game, and the game will get underway.
Yep, 10 out of 10 ready to go. They're just doing their last final pre-flight checks. But again, I don't like to harp, but at the same time, Seventh Heaven, they got to really be pulling something out of the bag here, because this draft is looking pretty overwhelmingly in the Premonition favor. The one advantage I will give Seventh Heaven is that because you do have to, kind of sit around, do the laning thing, hit the shrines, make sure that you keep the shrines. They will have a good amount of beef under their belt. The Stitches is not going to go down very quickly. The Muradin can poke and soak quite a bit. And Tassadar Brightwing for the double support. So they do got the staying power, at least earlier on in the game, to make a good shot at the Dragon. But in terms of big bursts, I just don't see it coming out of them. And They might just have to go for like a sustain, try to outlast the opponents kind of strategy.
Yeah, I mean, Premonition doesn't have a strong frontliner themselves. That's definitely their biggest weakness, is that Tyrael isn't really a tank as he is much as a bruiser. He definitely can't, absorb that much damage. He's more about judgment and then teleporting away with Eldruin's might to safety. That's kind of what his the linchpin of that hero is being able to successfully get off the judgment, pick off a target with the judgment, and then be able to get away to safety. But so that's definitely their weakness, and that's something Seventh Heaven is going to have to exploit very, very well if they want to have a successful time in the mid game. I will have to say Seventh Heaven's draft, as far as the laning phase goes, they have great laners. Murden has great regen and great sustain. Stitches has pretty good sustain through Cheer Your Food. Obviously, Hammer is a nightmare to deal with in lane anytime she has support. Tacitar's great. Brightwing's great. So the Seventh Heaven, I feel like, definitely has the advantage in the laning phase and as far as in the early game, being able to soak efficiently and maybe boss Premonition out of lane. Premonition, I want to see what their game plan is. Are they going to have more static lanes? Are they going to push with Zagara? They don't really have, I guess they could roam maybe with like a Tychus Uther if they feel like that, but they don't really have a really potent top-tier roaming combination either. So I definitely feel like Seventh Heaven is going to they need to get ahead in the laning phase and kind of take it from there. I feel like if they want to have a successful mid-game. We're going to see how this pans out, though. So the game is underway. The gates are about to go down here. Let's introduce these teams, Sean. On the left side of your map, we have Phaser playing Tacitar, Nick Star playing Brightwing. We have Akaria playing Stitches, Kill the Hype being playing the Murden, and Short Steve playing the Hammer.
The Hammer Bama.
The Hammer.
Or Bama the Hammer. I think that's it, yeah. Flip side, though, again, teams that we haven't really seen too much of, but Premonition with the Yin Yang actually going to be heading up top. Got Riptide to hold down the mid, and it looks like J-Dog, Death Spark, and Devil's Sin? Yeah, Devil's Sin. They're going to be looking for the party lane into the bottom. So if you guys don't know, Dragonshire has these, the South Pole, the North Pole. These are the shrines. You do that to get yourself a dragon. And you put a lot of people into this bottom lane because look at the party going on here. J-Dog getting really low right off the bat. Devil's Sin already tapped for the healing. He's actually just going to head all the way back. And typically you will see a lot more pressure into this bottom lane because there's 3 Merc camps, Rick, Rowan, and ready to go here. And you can't really give up that kind of pressure. I mean, that's just too much to say no to.
So the Zagara kind of, when I've seen the Zagara, normally we don't see this, but when with Demolitionist, they did that little Premonition did something we used to see all the time, but not so much anymore. They went 3 full long into the bottom tower. They took out about a third of its HP and knocked out a lot of its ammo with the Demolitionist. So they definitely already have an advantage as far as the structure damage goes. Looking at the lanes, though, I definitely feel like Tacitar and Tyrael is favoring the Tacitar a little bit. I don't think really either of them are going to boss each other out of the lane as long as they play it right. And then up in the top lane, I feel like Vala, Stitches, that's going to be, I don't know, it all depends on if the Vala can just dodge hooks accordingly. Bottom lane, Rip Sergeant Hammer. Too busy talking about the boring stuff. Who's going to one-on-one lanes? The 3v3 lane. The Mexican standoff wasn't that much of a standoff after all, Sean. So First Blood going the way of the Premonition.
Yep, that early game damage coming out, and they found the only target that has, the easier time dying. Kill the Hype now is going to be a big target, but he's going to jump to safety. Top lane, Yin Yang right there with Akario. Akaro? Yeah, Akario. I don't know, Aka. Yeah, Stitches. He was actually getting Ring Around the Rosied pretty hard there by Yin Yang, so he's not actually going to be taking care of that top. And Riptide and Phaser, they're going to keep going head to head, but I like to call that the wet noodle fight. They're not really going to get anywhere with each other. Yeah, it's all about, again, the party lane. It's all about this bottom, right? They keep trying to kill off this dwarf. You will have that passive kicking in, but every little bit of damage you can get on top of Short Steve could lead them into another kill. And the consistent threat of a dragon now mid is something that Blue's going to have to worry about for a bit.
Yeah, for a little while, the dragon shrines are going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. But Red has established themselves pretty well in the bottom lane, Red being Premonition. Looking at the talents right now, I want to look at the ball at Demon Hunter. She actually went with the Siphoning Arrow, which is it enables her Q to do a little bit more damage. An interesting choice, definitely more unorthodox. If we don't see the multi-shot, usually the fallback is the Rancor. And he's going with neither of those, going with the Siphoning Shot to give him a little bit more health return. I wonder if we're going to see Vampiric Embrace. That'll be interesting as well. Tyrael picking up the Amplified Healing, and a big thing, we see on Tychus player. Oh, no, Short Steve might be going down here. It's going to be close. Can the Hunter Killer get that last right click? No, that was close. But the Tychus didn't go melting point. Went with spray and pray, taking a page out of the notebook of the European Tychus players and foregoing that really strong pushing talent of melting point for the spray and pray option instead.
Yeah, spray and pray is going to be great if you're, never really going to have to do your own pushing. And they do got a Cigar, they do got a Vala, I guess they're saying that, and that's enough. And that's all the siege damage that we need. J-Dog is going to be helping here to focus in on some of these kills. Once again, just the shrines going back and forth. But
yeah,
in terms of the discussion about Vala and siphoning arrow, she is in this 1v1 scenario up against the Stitches, and the Stitches obviously can heal himself with Devour.
Right.
So what's your level 1 advantage when it comes to Vala? Well, her range and her arrows. And the arrow hit 3 times, and you can actually get a talent called Siphoning Arrow to return you health. In terms of discussion, I have this discussion in pro games as well. It actually has higher burst healing, the healing of when you actually need it, rather than the default level 4 Vampiric. So that's why she has the Manticore there instead.
I like that decision. Yeah, you're right. It's going to help her out in the laning phase quite a bit. We'll see how that transitions into the mid game here once the laning phase kind of falls apart and we see a little bit more 4-5 man roaming. Bottom lane, it's just still a big old party, Sean. These teams just keep falling back and forth, and back and forth. We're doing the cha-cha slide or something like that. That would be phenomenal. Well, these teams are really, really static. These lanes are just so static, man. And that's kind of what I predicted, because neither team really has any strong roamer or any good roaming combinations, but they do have good static lanes. So these guys just are committing to the 1 top, 1 mid, and 3 bottom. And right now, the towers are up for everyone right now. Not a single tower has gone down. The experience is pretty damn even. So they were able to get, they being Premonition, were able to get the Siege Ogre camp. So that was cleaned up pretty damn quick from 7th Heaven. And it's just a constant fight. I mean, it better hit the fan once these teams hit level 10. Oh no, top lane. How did Vala go down? Good lord. She's just getting a solo kill on the Vala. That's a big misplay.
Yeah, she kind of misplayed that pretty hard. Thought she had vision in the bush, didn't move 2 steps too close to it, and that was it for the stun, for the slam, for not the stun, yeah, for the slam going down. And Stitches will actually take that. That will now be the flip of the experience. Level 10 is going to be achieved first here for 7th Heaven. Blue is now going to be able to control both of these shrines. Very likely, yeah, here comes the stun, kill the hype, Short Steve, but there's nobody really to help out the mid at this point. Now, we actually don't we have a lot of mana there for Tyrio. He's actually really low on that, and he just used his sword. Here comes the Stitches, but wow, they're not going to go for the cap. Instead, they are actually now just going back to the lane, but that's okay, because kill the hype. He's finally going to be a dead dwarf into this bottom lane. Nick Star just a little bit out of position there. He uses the Emerald Wind, will disengage, so kills for kills, going back and forth. Experience is basically caught up. Well, this is familiar. It's the Red Shrine threat once more.
So things have been heating up here, Sean. And I think a lot of it's attributed to the fact that the Draken laser drill is being picked up by Tychus. That's
so.
He picked up the laser. He just used the bottom lane.
He really wants to make use of those overkill talents.
Yeah. Hey, I love it. This is why I love these kind of more amateur, less-known teams, is because they're willing to pull stuff out like this, man. Absolutely love it. Is it gonna be the judgment into the strafe and the Draken laser? That's gonna be. How do you? Is it? I don't know why I want to say it like Draken, like roll my tongue when I say it. Is that the right way to say it?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Draken.
Draken. Okay.
Yeah. Never played StarCraft.
Cool. That's definitely an unorthodox choice to. That's one way of putting it. It's definitely unorthodox. Kill the hype, knowing what's going on with Death Spark, trying to steal the camp, having to force out the Maw, but he might actually get separated from his team. He does have the Avatar to fall back on. Divine Storm follow up on him. Cigar is sending a right click. There's the Avatar. For now, is going to keep him up. Gusty Healing being used from the Brightwing. So right now, no one going down. A lot of heroics being exchanged. And Premonition. Yes, Premonition. We're able to get the Siege Ogre camp, though I'm sure that 7th Heaven are going to be able to clean that up pretty quick here. So we're here at the 8-minute mark, 2 kills to 1. This game has been a fairly even game and just rather static game, with both these teams not really over-committing to much of anything. Not a single Dragon Knight so far, and now level 13 talents are here for both of the teams.
So Tyke is putting down the laser. We're going to have to be looking for some big zone control here. I mean, we got the Maw, the Divine Storm, and now the laser. So setting up for the laser, setting up for the strafe, that's going to be the big part of the frontliners here for Red. I mean, it was the Judgment, I do believe, as we see Tychus actually die top lane. Actually, that's probably it for Yin Yang as well. They're not going to get that kill on Stitches. No, sir. Kill the Hype's doing a fantastic job body blocking, but yeah, you ran out of tricks eventually when that cooldown came down. And yeah, Stitches, you got to go heal, brother. It's not going to work. Kill the Hype's just going to jump the fence, and he's going to be able to grab himself that shrine. But yeah, with the Judgment and the Divine Storm and that Maw, they are going to be looking up for that back end. And there goes Uther in the bottom lane. Blue will have the Hype going through for the mid here.
Yeah, there's definitely was a miscommunication bottom lane because the Uther used Divine Storm. He got a good Divine Storm on to the Sergeant Hammer and the Brightwing, but the Zagara retreated at the same time. So the Uther thought there was going to be follow-up, maybe a Maw or Baneling bombs from the Zagara. But unfortunately, due to that miscommunication, they were able to pick off the Uther. And this is going to give us the first Dragonite here, about the 9.5-minute mark. And we actually are starting to see some action. Lanes being pushed in, and the team finally pushing themselves in advantage. Goodbye, 3 points to the, what was it, 300? Yeah, 300 getting knocked down. So Fort going down, and right now 7th Heaven is gonna be trying to get themselves at level 16 talent. Meanwhile, down on the bottom lane though, Zagara is trying to push, did get the tower bottom lane, but gonna get cleaned up and pushed back by the Sergeant Hammer.
Yeah, the Sergeant Hammer was definitely pushed, but now you're going to see this big collapse on top of Deathspark, and Deathspark doesn't have any escape mechanisms ready to go. He does, however, have a gate, but what a hook. Well done, Stitches. That's going to be it. No Maw for this fight, but the Judgment comes in. You see the strafe now ticking away there at the Dragonite's health. In comes the Divine Storm, but unfortunately, there's just no kill follow-up onto it. There goes the Uther. Tyrael now has to be really, really careful because of the pressure. The hook comes in. That's going to be it for Riptide. The Team Ghost is now about to explode. And that is a 3-kill and multi-tower / fort advance with the Dragonite, putting us a clear level advantage for 7th Heaven.
Yeah, they have busted this game wide open after about 8 minutes of just static play, a couple pickoffs every now and then. They are the ones, they are now the aggressors. They were getting a little tired of it being a boring game, wanted to give us something exciting to watch. And that's exactly what they did. They're level 16, pushing their advantage.
Something had to give, Shane. Something had to give. That's just the way that this game is structured.
Exactly. They're gonna fall back. There's not much really to fall back on except some bruiser camp. This bottom bruiser camp, this is definitely the sketchiest of all sketchy camps to get in the game because it just forces you in such awful position. But they know they can do it. They have level 16. They just got a good team fight out of it. But it's not like the shrines are up. They aren't going to get yet another dragon out of it. So their successful team fight isn't going to translate into too much. And this is going to enable Premonition to soak up experience in the meantime and try to get on even level with the talents. They're not too far up from level 16. So they are down a level. They're definitely not out of the game by any means yet. Only 1 fort, 2 fort down for them. Their top lane is still very, very healthy. Just that 1 tier 1 tower is about a quarter HP. So Premonition definitely has plenty of time and opportunity to turn this around. And we're going to see if they have what it takes to do so. But right now, 7th Heaven definitely is looking like the stronger team here.
Well, 7th Heaven might have the experience lead, but they have now lost out on that window where they had an extra talent. The 16s have now been achieved for both sides of the fence. And it's going to be Groove Spines coming out for Zagara, very likely the second charge now here as well at level 16. And, you know, going back and forth, it is the triple overkill build from the Tychus. It's not relentless, says I don't need it. There's no Odin here for me to kind of just, you know, live through because he doesn't have that extra hit point bar. So the triple overkill is real. Here goes the Judgment though. Riptide going right on top of Tassiter. That's a questionable choice, but the stun follow up. Here comes the laser as well. That's going to be right there on top of the Archon. And a Maw does take down 2 people into the depths. Fortunately, it is the turnaround. Nobody has died as of yet. Team Never Die, as it apparently is going to be, has now taken out not only the Tyrael, but the Uther. As I said, the ghosts are about to blow up. And unfortunately, it's just like, we have so much damage here from Premonition, but they're not focusing it on the right people. I mean, that was a Judgment and the laser on top of an Archon. We took down the Stitches and the Brightwing in the Maw. Sergeant Hammer is full health at the end of that fight. they're not focusing the right guys, and unfortunately they're kind of paying for it, because right now we have 2 kills in 13 minutes, and the second Dragon Knight's now going to be marching on top of Premonition.
Yeah, using the judgment on the Tassadar, out of all the targets to be initiated on, Tassadar is definitely the worst. Especially since he has his level 13, level 16 talents. Tassadar is just so hard to kill. Once he hits those mid-game talents, he's just, we call it the race car build, because he just zooms away, he heals up. He goes to another dimension. Some interstellar stuff going on right there. And so they're definitely not the best target to initiate on, and they got punished for it. And this is going to enable them to get a Dragon Knight, push down these tier 2 towers in the mid lane. It is a 5v5. The talent levels are still even. Though 7th Heaven is on the cusp of getting that level 20. They're not going to get it in any big, or anytime soon, rather, but they're definitely pretty damn close to it. So I want to make sure that they don't get their eyes don't get bigger than their stomach here, because it could be disastrous. If they push too hard, if they get a little too cocky here, as you mentioned, they really don't have that much damage, and they could get initiated on. There's the initiation they were looking for. Short Steve, is there enough follow-up? There's the overkill beam down. Devouring Maw completely whiffed, though. Short Steve hitting the boosters, using the first aid. The laser is in the background. Serial getting knocked away on the other side of the team. Almost a safety going down right there, but no 2 points going their way. Just 1 kill. Ball gonna go down. The Tyke is standing in his Psionic Storm. It's getting a little stormy form right there, brother. He's gonna get taken out. And 7th Heaven, once again, they're just have so much sustain. They almost got the Sergeant Hammer down, but it just wasn't good enough to get them down. And now 4 are down, and this is gonna enable them to just walk all over this map, get the camps, and push these lanes in.
It was a good starting initiation. They judged the hammer. They brought him down low. There's no ancestral healing. She got some shields. She had to pop out the first aid, but we had a good chance there to just blow the rest of her up. But unfortunately, the Maw didn't hit. Stitches, very, very good use of that putrid bio. He basically slowed down the rest of the initiation. Like, they couldn't catch up to the Tyrael. The Uther couldn't get in position for the stuns. That's how Short Steve got away. He was able to then heal up into the back, and there was just no focus past that. I mean, they failed and put so much into trying to kill the Sergeant Hammer that when it came at the end of the rotation, they're like, oh, well, all right, we kind of got nothing left in the tank. And they just kind of sputtered and died. 4 of them, in fact, dying on the back of that fight.
So this is a very big opportunity for 7th Heaven. They're trying to build that stairway, get up to where their team name says. And they're going to push down with the level 20 talent. Rewind on Brightwing is a very, very big power boost. That double polymorph was such a potent tool. Seen its strength right there. Uther getting hooked and put in the bag. So now they're down their Uther. Premonition being down their Uther. They're pushing with this Bruiser camp. Sergeant Hammer in the back line. This bottom heap is going to be dead to rights. Don't know if they're going to be able to push into the core here. It is at a stage in the game where the death timers are long enough to where if they get another pick off, that could just absolutely be the end of the game. With how big of an advantage they have at this time, looks like they're not going to go with that, though. They're going to take a page out of Evil Genius's book, go with the more conservative play. Don't throw too hard. Fall back as the dragon is about to spawn. And now that we're hitting that 15-minute plus Dragon Knight, he can just do so much work. He can just push down lanes almost entirely by himself. You hit the point where he can just push into a core and there's nothing you can do about it. And when you have a hero like Brightwing on your team, you always have that mobility advantage. Down here in mid lane, they got to be careful though, because they are separated. This is a 3v5 right now. Kill the Hype. He's using that using his passive to try to get away. The hammer toss, or the dwarf hammer rather, is it being used to get him out? Now this is a one sketchy of a team fight right here. J-Dog is in the back. He's going to go down more than likely. Devouring Maw being used. No follow-up except the Baneling bomb. So many Banelings. But that's not going to do much of any damage. Yin Yang has got to find inner peace if he wants to get away here, because he's going to be hit with the stun. A inevitable heal is going to be going down, but he's going to just a delay heal, or rather. And they're going to go down, and once again, 7th Heaven is looking so good right now, man. They're going to get this Dragon Knight, and I won't be surprised if they just march down bottom lane in the game.
Team never die. It has been 17 minutes. We talked about this at the 13-minute mark. It was 16. Well, okay, I don't know what it was then, but it was something to 2, and now it's still 16 to 2. Right now, you know, I had reservations about this 7th Heaven comp, but again, Premonition, they're not focusing. They're very split. That last team fight just went off in 2 separate directions, but the more important part is that once again, Short Steve is literally just setting up camp in the back and shelling out perfectly as this mortar. Riptide cannot get in because there's nobody to follow up, and the rest of the team just starts melting because they do not have the sustain or the survivability of with one healer, with that Uther. So, you know, I had my reservations, but they played super well. Seventh Heaven will take your second win of the night here with ESL NA Community Cup this beautiful Friday night.
Beautiful indeed. I feel like Seventh Heaven was just outright the better team there. I was a little hesitant about their draft too there, but once I saw how they started to play it with their laning phase was so very strong, as we saw in the early game, which was a very static, I dare say boring early game. But once we hit those level 10, level 13 talents, they really started to push in those lanes. Then they just dug their feet in the dirt and they never let go of their position in the match. And it was all about, I mean, we've seen Protect the Hammer comp, Sean, but good Lord, that's all about protecting the hammer. You get anywhere near that hammer and you're going to get punished for it. The Tychus pick, using the build with he kind of, you know, using the overkill to help zone for the laser, I think it's cute, but I don't think it's the most effective thing in the world. It really didn't translate into much ever. I never saw a team fight where I was like, oh my God, the laser.
Exactly.
It really didn't pay out for him at all. So congratulations to Seventh Heaven. Moving on to the second round of this Community Cup, and looking forward to see more play out of these teams, man.
So, I mean, there's been a lot of talk in chat about why are they poo-pooing the laser? The laser's absolutely fine. I've won games with the laser. I mean, yes, that's great. Having a comp that builds around a laser is very effective. Having a comp where there's no coordinated burst and you go laser instead of Tychus Odin, that is not so great. Because we saw just such a juggling in this game, Shane. I mean, the laser didn't add anything to the burst comp that they needed to break through that front line.
I mean, if they maybe picked up a Falstad, I mean, we saw a Falstad be played to great effect last game with the Force Your Hand, played it great with a follow-up on a mosh pit. I mean, that's a combination we used to see all the time, was a judgment into what it was known as back then, Shock and Awe, now Hinterland's Blast.
Yep.
And I think that would have been an absolutely great tool, because Seventh Heaven's lineup was so built around that Sergeant Hammer. It was just the foundation of their draft and of their lineup. If they had the more effective tools to take that hammer out of the fight, they could have just, you know, focused down the hammer and then just from there almost win the team fights by default. But they definitely felt almost, I want to say, lackadaisical, disconnected. They really didn't ever line up that well with each other. Their draft didn't line up. Their team fight didn't line up. There was some sloppy play in the early laning stage of the game that really is what set Seventh Heaven up in that great position. So that's why we're going to see them pull out the victory there, man. And who are they going to face up next? Let me take a look here.
They're going to be taking on the Nexus Globetrotters, and we very likely are going to be following them in. ESV Wildfire is still fighting it out with You Force My Hand, but the winner of that will move on to Infernus Gaming into the semifinals. So when we return, guys, it's going to be one or the other. I'm actually more partially inclined to go see what Nexus Globetrotters are like, because that's just a fantastic name. That is one thing the amateur scene has. Fantastic team name.
Oh, my Lord. There are some names that I can't even say on your stream because your stream will get banned, but there's some interesting names I've seen before.
It was like the Rigid Biscuit and the Runny Gravy was one team. Was one team. And then it was like Johnny Q and the Tidbits, Shot and the Bullets. The Happy Fairy Dragons? They sound like band.
They sound like rock metal band names, man.
No, definitely some really good naming schemes going on. So when we return, guys, we're going to check in with the Nexus Globetrotters for your semi. Still best of one, but that just means we're going to be ever closer to those best of three finals. FourCourtJester will return in just a few with your next cast, so don't go anywhere.